It is 3:47 a.m., and you are standing in a loading dock behind an NFL stadium, holding a spreadsheet that lists 2,847 individual items. Your name is on exactly 0 of them. The spreadsheet belongs to the team. The items belong to the team. The stadium belongs to the team. The parking spot you were standing in, the one marked "Authorized Personnel Only" in orange letters large enough to be read from space, also belongs to the team. You belong to the team in roughly the same way a wrench belongs to a plumber. Useful when needed, invisible when not, and occasionally blamed when something breaks. A 53-man NFL roster is dressed, padded, cleated, and gloved from head to toe 7 hours from now. Every single piece of that equipment, 53 helmets, 53 sets of shoulder pads, 53 pairs of pants, 53 pairs of cleats, hundreds of undershirts, towels, hand warmers, wristbands, rib protectors, knee braces, thigh pads, hip pads, and exactly 1 pair of extra-wide cleats for the starting left tackle who has feet the size of snowshoes is your responsibility. If one item is wrong, you hear about it immediately. If everything is right, you hear nothing. That is your performance review. Silence. You open the loading dock door with a keycard that looks like it was manufactured during the Clinton administration. The fluorescent lights flicker on in the equipment room. You pour yourself a coffee from a machine that makes a sound like a small animal being stepped on. You open the spreadsheet. Line 1. Helmets. You already know they're fine. You checked them yesterday. You're going to check them again anyway, because the one time you don't check, something will be wrong, and the starting safety will find out about it by helmet butting a wide receiver at full speed. That's the kind of morning that ends careers. Your official title is Equipment Manager. On your business card, which you have never handed to anyone because nobody at an NFL facility has ever asked for your business card, it says Director of Equipment Operations. That word, director, is doing a lot of heavy lifting. You direct 53 athletes who have never once in their professional lives taken direction from you. You direct a staff of 4 equipment assistants who make $28,000 a year and look at you with a reverence of men who know you've survived things they haven't seen yet. You direct a room full of custom-manufactured equipment valued at over $400,000, which is $400,000 more than your annual salary. You also direct the laundry. There is always laundry. The NFL Players Association has a 364-page collective bargaining agreement. It covers salaries, bonuses, practice schedules, drug testing protocols, injury guarantees, grievance procedures, and 27 pages about the precise conditions under which a player can refuse to practice. Nowhere in those 364 pages is a single sentence about what happens to an equipment manager's lower back after 11 years of loading 50-gallon coolers into cargo bays. This is because the CBA was negotiated to protect players. You are not a player. You are the person who makes sure the players look like players. You played college ball, Division II offensive line. You were the starting right guard for 3 seasons, which means you spent 3 years being the person who makes the quarterback look good and receives 0 of the credit. It turns out this was excellent preparation for your current career. The offensive coordinator on your old team used to call you the invisible wall. At the time, you thought it was a compliment. You understand now that he meant it as a structural observation, not a compliment. You have a degree in kinesiology and a master's in sports management. You also have a knee that pops when you climb stairs and a lower back that functions as a barometric pressure gauge, reliably predicting rain 48 hours in advance. These 2 credentials, the degrees and the broken body, were obtained simultaneously over a period of 6 years, and together qualify you to carry duffel bags across a locker room at 4 a.m. The market has spoken. A first-round pick at your position earns $23 million over 4 years and gets a documentary crew following him through training camp. You earn a figure that will not appear in this script because it would make it feel like a tragedy, and this is supposed to be funny. The player's custom cleats cost $800 a pair. He goes through 4 pairs a season. You order them, receive them, prep them, inspect them, and hand them over without comment. Last week, he told you one of them felt a little off. You held it up to the light for 45 seconds, nodded, and replaced it. It was fine. He wore it for 6 plays and threw it away. By 6 a.m., the equipment room looks like the world's most organized sporting goods store has been detonated by a controlled explosion. Every locker is stocked. Every jersey is hung in precise order, home, away, alternate, because the backup wide receiver wore the wrong jersey in a preseason game 3 years ago and had caused a fine and an incident report and a 40-minute meeting that you still think about every time you open a jersey bin. You do not think about it fondly. The offensive linemen arrive first. They always arrive first. Men who weigh between 315 and 345 pounds tend to have pre-game rituals that require extended time windows. The starting center needs his wrists taped in a specific figure-8 pattern that he learned from a trainer in college and has refused to modify despite 2 different head athletic trainers explaining that it is biomechanically suboptimal. You tape it his way. He plays 14 seasons. You do not bring up biomechanics again. At 7:30 a.m., the starting cornerback walks in, looks directly at his locker, and says, with the confidence of a man who has never once been wrong about anything, "My other gloves." He means the pair with the custom grip pattern on the index finger that he requested in August, received in September, and has used in exactly 1 game since. You retrieve them from a secondary storage bin organized by player number, position, and preference level. This bin exists because you created it. Nobody asked you to create it. It has saved you approximately 11 conversations per week. Nobody has thanked you for it or acknowledged that it exists. This is fine. It exists for you, not for them. At 8:58 a.m., a rookie defensive back, 3rd-round pick, 11 games into his professional career, approaches you with the expression of someone about to ask a question they are embarrassed to ask. He says, "My visor." He holds up his helmet. The tinted visor is scratched, not severely, but enough to catch light at an angle that will bother him. He has a backup visor in his locker. You know he has a backup visor in his locker because you put it there. You take his helmet, you install the backup visor in 40 seconds, you hand it back. "Thanks," he says with genuine surprise, as if he expected this to take longer or require documentation. He will learn. They all learn eventually. At 8:15 a.m., the starting quarterback arrives. He is, by any reasonable metric, the most important person in this building on game day. His equipment demands are architectural in scope. Helmet must be inspected and returned with the face mask at exactly the correct angle. Jersey must be pre-stretched. He does not like restriction in the throwing shoulder. Gloves, he doesn't wear gloves, but he needs exactly 6 wristbands on the left arm and none on the right, because he tried one on the right in 2021 and threw an interception, and causation was established in his mind without further investigation. You place 6 wristbands on his shelf. You say nothing about the interception. You were not there for it. You have heard about it 9 times. It is now 10:45 a.m. and the team buses have returned from the stadium tunnel entrance inspection. You are standing at the sideline equipment station, a rolling cart with military-level organization containing backup cleats in 4 different sizes, backup gloves in 3 grip patterns, backup visors for 6 different helmet models, a full roll of pre-wrap, elastic tape, athletic tape, and a bag of rubber bands that nobody uses but you bring every week because a special teams coach asked for one in 2019 and you didn't have it, and he still mentions it on a monthly basis. The starting defensive end, a 6'5" man who moves at speeds that defy his dimensions, jogs over to you during warm-ups. He is pointing at his cleat. "Feels loose," he says. He is 3 hours from the opening kickoff. You kneel on the synthetic turf, grip his cleat with both hands, and apply measured pressure to each eyelet. It is not loose. The lace tension is within normal parameters. His foot is sweating because he has been warming up at full speed for 20 minutes in 74-degree weather, and the human foot expands slightly under sustained exertion. You explain none of this. You retie it. He jogs away satisfied. You stand back up. Your knee makes a sound. 11 minutes later, a different player walks over. He is holding his helmet. He is not wearing his helmet. He is carrying it at his side, which is bad because if he drops it on the turf from shoulder height, the internal padding will shift and need to be refitted. The chin strap, he says. You look at the chin strap. It is correctly attached. It is at the correct tension. You have personally checked this chin strap twice today. What about it, you ask. Feels weird, he says. You remove the chin strap. You reattach the chin strap. You hand him the helmet. Better, you ask? He puts it on. He turns his head left, then right. Yeah, he says, and walks away. You have now spent 14 minutes on 2 pieces of equipment that were functioning correctly. This is a good morning. At 12:17 p.m., the special teams coordinator walks past your cart without stopping and says at a volume designed to reach you but not require eye contact, "We need backup K-balls ready." You already have backup K-balls ready. You have had backup K-balls ready since 9 a.m. You have had backup K-balls ready every game for 11 years. You say, "Ready." He keeps walking. This is the entirety of your professional relationship with him. It is halftime. The score is close enough that the locker room has the atmosphere of a room where 35 men are separately calculating whether this is going to be a good week or a very bad week. The head coach is talking. Everyone is listening to the head coach. You are crouched behind the secondary equipment station, replacing a cracked visor on the starting safety's backup helmet, which he needs because his primary helmet took a direct hit in the second quarter, and the padding certification protocol requires a re-inspection before it can return to play, which takes 22 minutes, which means he plays the second half in the backup, which means the backup needed to be ready, which it was, which is why no one is talking about it. Then the starting wide receiver comes to find you. He does not say hello. He holds up his right cleat. The sole is separating, a clean delamination of the outer grip layer starting at the toe and running halfway to the heel. It is catastrophic for gameplay and simultaneously the most embarrassing thing that has happened to you in 6 months because this cleat was inspected this morning and showed no signs of failure, which means the failure occurred during the first half, which means he played 3 drives on a cleat that was actively coming apart, which means the only reason nobody told you earlier is that nobody noticed, and the only reason nobody noticed is that the cleat was still mostly functional, which is not the kind of news that makes you feel better about the situation. You have a backup pair. Of course you have a backup pair. You have a backup pair for every starter in a half-size increment above and below their listed size, because foot swelling over the course of a game is a documented physiological reality. You retrieve the backup from the bin, hand it over, watch him put it on, watch him shift his weight, watch him do the small nod that means acceptable, and he returns to the field. Total elapsed time, 74 seconds. The head coach is still talking. Nobody turned around. You look down at the broken cleat in your hand. The separation is clean. It happened at the adhesive layer, not the material. Manufacturing variance, not wear. You photograph it with your phone for the post-game equipment report that you write every single week and has been read by exactly 2 people in 11 years. You place the broken cleat in the defective returns bin. You pick up the backup visor. You return to work. The fourth quarter is 11 minutes of controlled chaos during which 4 separate players visit your sideline cart with equipment issues ranging from critical, a chin strap buckle failure on a defensive tackle, to medically creative, a linebacker who claims his knee brace is vibrating, which it is not, but you tighten it by 1 notch and tell him it was a micro compression issue, and he returns to the field satisfied with this explanation. You replace one visor, retape 2 pairs of wristbands, produce a backup mouthpiece from a sealed bag, and field a request from a practice squad player who has not played a single snap today for a pair of hand warmers. You give him the hand warmers. He is going to be here again next week, maybe the week after. This is how you make allies. With 43 seconds left in a 3-point game, the starting cornerback, the one with the custom grip gloves, sprints off the field at full speed, rips the gloves off both hands and holds them out toward you without slowing down significantly. "Other ones," he says. You already have the other ones. You produced the other ones from the secondary storage bin 9 minutes ago when the game situation indicated a likely 2-minute drill scenario requiring a different grip pattern for potential ball hawking opportunities. He grabs them without stopping. He pulls them on as he runs back toward the field. He does not look at you. He does not say thank you. He intercepts a pass on the next play. The sideline erupts. 87,000 people are screaming. You replace the gloves in the bin.